Hello and welcome back to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. As just promised, we have a very special guest for you today. We're talking science-backed hormone balancing with Madison Dohnt. Madison, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff. So yeah, the more the better.
Very topical. And as I just said, you are my very first video guest because you're in Brisbane, I'm in Sydney. So bear with us on the technical stuff. We're going to push through. We'll figure it out. But it's great to be able to talk and connect so easily from our homes. So that's great. I'm going to jump straight into it because there's so many questions I want to ask you. You've had such an interesting journey with treating your cystic acne and PCOS naturally. Can you explain a little bit for those who don't know what PCOS is and talk us through your experiences and the results that you've had, which I've seen on your page are amazing.
Yeah, so I actually started experiencing the cystic acne first. And but first to cover, like, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and there's a lot of myths around it. So you don't actually have to have cysts on your ovaries in order to be diagnosed with PCOS. But essentially it's what's called a hyperandrogenism, androgenistic disorder, where that word basically just means high androgens, or like high testosterone, high male hormones essentially, which is why women, the symptoms will be like acne, hair growth where they don't want it, also balding.
Everything for women, every problem that I see comes back to hormones, and men just get up and do their day. And I just feel like they're so not affected the way we are. Because we
absolutely.
have testosterone, right? So there's always an imbalance there with women I talk to, so yeah.
Yeah, and testosterone has so many incredible benefits. It's what helps our bones and muscles grow really strong, and it's important for libido, so we need it. But like everything in the body, it's about having a balance, not too much or too little. And I think the health industry is usually all or nothing, very extreme, as opposed to balance. So hence,
when you say health industry, do you mean medical health industry and not the more alternative, or do you mean in general?
Both. It comes down to, I guess, the individual, because I know where you're going with that, but also you look at people who are natural on Instagram and they're like, you can only eat this and nothing else, and it's just like the extremist views, and it's like, chill.
You got to live in the grey area in life. I do find that people are so extreme and you just can't sustain that. No, I get that. I agree with you. Both sides tend to be black and white.
It's just so, like, everything in life is about balance. Like, you don't want too much, stress, but then you also don't want to be sitting around doing nothing, because stress can be, like, short-term stress can be positive and motivating and exciting, and it's just everything. So, that's kind of...
that you said that. I have recently, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you because it's so
interesting
to me. I recently had an episode with a psychologist and we were talking about anxiety, and she's like, everyone labels it as bad, but anxiety can be good. Anxiety can, kick you into gear and make you motivated and make you do things, but it's that sustained stress. Now, I tend to get adrenal fatigue a lot, and it's one of those things that it's so hard to diagnose, but I know now when I get it, but it's always when it's the sustained period of stress, because the body can only take so much. And it's sort of, if you don't rest, your body's sort of telling you, well, I'll make you rest,
Yeah, absolutely. It happens to so many of us, and it's just like forced stop when you get sick because you've been so busy.
Body's had enough. You're not listening to me, so I'll make you listen. Sorry, carry on. So that's PCOS. So talk us through your journey with how you've treated it.
So I actually didn't have any symptoms when I was growing up through puberty. My puberty experience was pretty straightforward. I mean, of course, you kind of just figuring things out and your body is kind of a little bit haywire, but I didn't really have the crazy acne or the excruciating pain that a lot of poor teenage girls have. And so then when I was 17, I went on the pill, got my first boyfriend, safety first, and it was only through being on the pill for a couple of years that I then started experiencing cyclic cystic breakouts. And at the time, it crippled me. I was so insecure about it, but it would just be one cystic pimple on my chin, and I would be like, everyone's looking at it. And
it's that stage of life, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the worst, and I hated it. And then it did kind of just, I think it was not that it got worse, it just was so constant every single month, or it would like go away for a week and then I'd get another one the next month. And like I look back on all my travel photos and I can just like, I see the acne in those photos and it takes me back to that time.
Triggered.
I'm like, I remember how hard that was when all you want to do is get in all of these photos because you're traveling. And it's like, I don't know, it's just funny how different struggles like that, you just tie them to a certain memory. Like I even remember a staff Christmas party where my skin was really bad. And that's like the only staff Christmas party I remember.
Listen, we always remember the negative more than the positive, which is unfortunate, but that's human nature. But self-esteem is huge. Self-esteem for young women is very huge. And if there's something that's affecting, and, you know, someone else will look at you and be like, oh, I don't even notice it. You know, like someone might be so self-conscious of their teeth, or, you know, like I get a lot of fluid in my legs, work out constantly, but I've always had big legs and it's all I focus on all the time. But some people wouldn't notice that. And I watch these vloggers that are always so conscious that they've had hair loss and their acne. And they talk about it constantly, but I'm always looking at them like, their body's great. I wish my body looked like that. So we all have that one thing, but it's not. And then people think, oh, I'm being trivial because, you know, there's worse things in the world. But if it matters to you, it matters. And if it's affecting your self-esteem, it affects your confidence in every area of your life. So I completely get it. And I completely get, I'm always hunting solutions. If something's wrong with my body, I want to do everything I can to look and feel my best. So I completely understand that journey and you feeling like that.
Especially with personal development, you do always want to be the best version of yourself. And with acne, I think, I mean, all the examples you gave, they're very like external facing, like people, like as in people may not notice them, but they could if they wanted to. Whereas like sometimes if you're experiencing symptoms like period pain, it can be excruciating, but you can put on an act like nothing's happening, depending on how bad the pain is. Obviously, if you're in the fetal position, you can't really do anything about that. But a lot of the symptoms, inflammation, muscle soreness, you know, arthritis, that kind of thing, it's internal, and looking at you, like people would have no idea. Whereas acne is so, especially on your face, it's not like it's on your elbow and no one looks like that. It's like it's right at your face. So
focal point.
It's crazy. It's so crazy how big of an impact that has. And I have had lots of clients where they've had a world full of symptoms, but acne is the worst one purely just because it's the most obvious.
Yep, absolutely. So what did you do to address it for yourself personally?
Well, I first and foremost was a scientist. So I went and did a science degree. I really appreciated modern medicine, anything science-backed. I think, like, you know, technology is amazing. So first and foremost, I went to the doctor. They put me on the pill. They put me on antibiotics. And I just kind of followed that path for a little bit because that was to me, the most legit path and the one that I could trust and the one that most people do. And so, I went down that path. I mean, obviously I was already on the pill, but they put you on different pills to try and, like, different pills can make your skin slightly better.
I remember it.
And then it was always like the pill that made my skin better made me put on weight. So it was always like you're choosing one symptom or the other.
Remembering. I couldn't remember. I did Yaz and Yasmin, and I can't remember which one. Yeah, there was the weight fluctuations, but I would get really nauseous. Like I tried. Did you ever hear of NuvaRing? It was like a ring that you insert. And then this is way TMI, but this is what this podcast is about.
TMI is my life. Yeah.
Okay, my then boyfriend. No, I had a rash on my leg. And I Googled it, and then all these girls online were saying their boyfriends were getting that rash on their penis. I ended up going off that NuvaRing. But it was the only one that didn't make me nauseous because it was external and not having to swallow a pill. I have a really sensitive tummy and I'm very sensitive emotions. I'm a Cancerian, I'm an empath, and we'll get into the pill later, but I am just a much better person off it. I went off it like 7 years ago, I think. And I remember thinking, I don't cry anymore. I'm not crazy. It was the pill. My emotions were haywire, and I just couldn't do it. I could never go back personally.
It's crazy. You feel so much more like yourself when you're off it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So nice.
Myself. That's exactly how I described it. I feel like myself again. Like someone took over me, and awful. Yeah. Sorry,
it's the worst.
I digress.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to get into the pill.
No, I'm going to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the antibiotics as well. Like I went to the doctor and they put me on the highest dose because I was so desperate. It was pretty like bad for what it was at that time. And
I didn't know they prescribed antibiotics for acne, actually. That's the first I've heard of that.
so yeah, with the antibiotic, the doctor put me on the high dose because it was really bad at the time and I was really wanting results as soon as possible. And then I went back to the doctor and I was like, okay, so like what's the plan now? My acne has cleared being on this antibiotic. I want a really, really high dose. Can I go back down to a low dose? And so then she was like, okay, well, let's try it. I went down to the low dose and then
How
it
long
just
were
came
you on
back.
antibiotics for?
About a year and a half in total. Yeah.
On antibiotics.
Yeah, absurd. And like
Oh,
obviously with my science background, I knew about the whole antibiotic resistance and that kind of thing. But when I asked her like,
gut
okay,
health.
well, I'm not even going, yeah, and I'm not even
Yeah.
going off them completely. Even when I go to low dose, the acne comes back. So like what's the long-term plan? And she just said just stay on it the high dose indefinitely until you start experiencing some other symptoms and issues. And I'm like,
They don't. I think that honestly, this is my personal take. I'm not a medical professional. I think they don't know, and I think they're just saying what they have in front of them, and they don't know. And this is why I said I always prefer going to naturopaths and nutritionists and people that are looking at me as an individual, not just tick and flick with a
yeah,
script. Yeah, I mean that's insane for your gut health. I'm sorry, this is my personal opinion. To be
yeah.
on antibiotics for that long, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, well, now having done like the naturopathy degree and the nutrition degree, I'm just like, absolutely not. That's just,
Can you
it's,
believe it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's absurd. And that's why, like, even though my acne was one cystic pimple monthly, or maybe one or two, when like, after a year and a half, I was like, this is absurd. Like, this is not the long term solution. And so I tried to wean myself off it. And I was like, there's no point asking the doctor to help me wean myself off it because their advice is to stay on it. Like, they don't know how to help me otherwise.
Yeah.
So I tried to go off it, and that's when I had like severe cystic acne on my whole face, particularly on my cheeks. It was just, that was like next level to the point where I didn't want to leave the house. Like I still, to work, wore 3 layers of makeup. I couldn't look people in the eyes when I was talking to them. It was
Eye
just,
contact is huge when you're self-conscious, so I completely understand that. Yep.
yeah, especially when you have like huge cyst pimples here. Like it's just
You're just
right next
conscious
to
you're
your
looking
eyes.
at your pimples rather than
Yeah.
looking at you. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was awful. And that's when I like, yeah, I went back to the doctor and I was, because mum was like, just go back to what was working, because she could see how depressed I was at that
She'd be so
stage.
worried for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was so
absolutely.
worried, and she's very supportive and very much like also loves to research anything that
Great.
anyone's struggling with. So she's like, come on, let's find our own answers. Yeah, so mum was super supportive of doing our own research and working out our own plan, but she just saw how depressed I was in that moment that she was like, maybe get some relief while we're doing that. But yeah, I changed pills, but I just didn't want to go back on that antibiotics. And that's when I started I think I first started just by reading lots of books, like any books that I could get my hand on. I started reading Plant Paradox, which does have some pretty extremist views. I can't say that I follow the diet now or have done for ages, but it just opened my eyes, I guess, to the science in plants and behind plants and how they work. And I mean, I did already have a biology degree. I know at the cellular level what stuff, like what happens, but medicinally, it just kind of opened that wormhole for me and I just had to learn more. And so then I just, yeah, went down that hole of needing to learn more and more and more. And that's kind of when I started studying naturopathy and learning how to improve my gut health, and my skin just kind of got better from there. And then when I had cleared my acne, I was like, okay, time to go off the pill. Went off the pill, and then that's kind of 6 months later-ish is when I then got diagnosed with PCOS, because I went off the pill, acne came back, had to figure all that out again, and this time it was hormonal because the pill and all of that. So it was another journey, which obviously I was studying then, so I could go on that at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. Well, how did your personal journey lead you to a career in educating others?
So I actually, after I became a scientist and did my science degree, I found that I was so passionate about what I was learning, and I just thought the body was fascinating, that I found more joy in teaching it to others than I did like being in a lab, not speaking to anyone, looking down a microscope all day, or going out into the field and counting snake holes.
Listen, when you find something that works for you, it's your purpose and your joy to pass that information on. I feel like the whole reason I started this podcast is because after decades of unhealthy relationships or just unhealthy life choices, I found things that really made me feel great about myself, and I just want to pass that information on to younger people. So I completely understand why that's what you felt your calling was.
Yeah, because you're just like, oh, I just want you to help you learn and not follow my mistakes, because you just look back and you're just like, oh, I wish that I didn't have to go through that.
Do you ever pass people on the street, like especially teenagers with really bad acne, and want to stop them and give them information, but don't because you don't want to offend people? That's like
Yeah.
leadership. And recent episode I did with Carla Oates, same thing. Like she figured out how to treat her skin and gut, through feeding the gut. And I know her products work so well. So every time I see people, I'm like, I just want to give them the link to a product that I know is going to help, but, I bite my tongue. But you're just so excited to pass that information on because you see people, it helped people so much. You just want to pass it on.
Yeah, and I don't dare, because I have a lot of experience with,
100%.
Just randoms, but also family, friends, whatever, where it's like people need to be ready for the information. They need to be in a certain phase of their journey to be open to it. Like unsolicited advice doesn't help anyone, and it just makes me frustrated.
Unsolicited advice, I hate, and that's something I've come across in parenthood. If I don't ask, don't tell. And I do the same. If no one asks, I don't pass it on. I bite my tongue.
Yeah. And I used to be like, just want to help everyone and just be like, oh, well, you just got to do this. But now it was getting me too frustrated and triggered when people were then completely ignoring that advice and then still struggling. And I was just like, I give up.
Yes. You know what? The best thing to do is lead by example, and people are like, wow, look how much she's improved her life. I'll do it. No one wants to be preached at. It's the whole reason we don't answer when Bible bashers knock on the door. So I get it.
Yeah. And like, I think about how I receive advice as well. And I like to have like evidence and that kind of thing. And, know that there's science behind it and there's rhyme and reason. And so, the way that I kind of do that is I put all of the information out online now, and then when people are ready for it and when they want it, they can go to it, and they don't have to believe it because I said that's the way. They believe it because I explain like the science behind it, and then they're like, oh, well, yeah.
But Mads, also, you hit the nail on the head. It's also, life is about the journey. You can't just have the answers in your lap. People have to do the work, and that's the whole part, not the destination. The journey is finding that. And sometimes you have to be at the right stage of your life. I often talk about, have you ever read any books by Eckhart Tolle, not related to gut or skin health? And
Power of Now?
Yes, yeah. And when I first read his book, I was like, what is this? It's like hieroglyph. I can't even say it. It's like a foreign language. I just couldn't understand it. It didn't make sense. A few years later, every word was jumping off the page, and light bulb, because I wasn't at the stage where that's what I needed. So I sort of feel like I'm a big believer in the universe, and sometimes the information comes to you at the right time when it's meant to as well. So the journey is important for everyone to get there on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see any, like, you often have to learn the hard way, and all of the struggles that I've been through, I see purpose in them. And I often joke that life just throws me these like health conditions so that I can go through and experience them myself and work out the way to be able to help others. Because last year I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and that came on so suddenly, like 2023, even up until December, nothing. And then like the start of 2024 started experiencing pain out of nowhere, and it was just crazy. So I was like, of course you're giving me endo as well, because it's just, no matter how much you study and as a practitioner and a professional, it's a whole other thing when you actually are experiencing the symptoms and the treatment yourself. And like, you've done laparoscopy surgery, what's involved in that, what the recovery is like. It's so different experiencing it versus storytelling or just knowing of it. So I just joke that like, that's what I'm on this earth for.
There's some merit to that. I look back at bad relationships, not with resentment or regret. I just sort of feel like I just wouldn't be, I don't know, I don't want to say wise like I'm talking myself up, but I've just evolved so much as a person, and I wouldn't have been like that, and I wouldn't be able to pass on this information if I hadn't gone through that. So I kind of feel like everyone has a cross to bear. No one's got a free ride. So if that was mine, that's okay. I got through it. So you're probably feeling the same way. It's your purpose, I guess, in a roundabout sort of way. So how are you teaching others? What sort of work are you doing? It's online? Is anything in person?
Yes, so I started with a YouTube channel, and so that I started in 2019. I haven't posted on YouTube for a couple of years as the business has evolved and gotten super busy. It's just so hard to keep up with content and like everything else. But yeah, teaching is really my zone of genius, coupled with the science of the biology and the health. So creating my programs just makes me like light up. And the reason why I love creating programs versus just working one-on-one with clients is that it empowers women to be able to make the choices and decisions and actions like on their own, because knowledge is power. And it's one thing to just have a practitioner tell you to eat this at that time and do this and blah, blah, blah. But like, instead of being told what to do, if you genuinely understand it, you have so much more control. And often when we are experiencing a lot of these health conditions, we feel really hopeless, especially if the modern medicine hasn't like helped us, and we just feel so out of control. So then the way that I'm a little bit of a control freak. So the way that I got the control back is by really getting to know my condition and my symptoms and learning the mechanisms of what drives it, so that I can then use that knowledge, reverse engineer it and clear it. Like that was just how my logical brain worked. So that's kind of how I like to work. And even when I do work one-on-one with clients, I'm like, I don't want you to be reliant on me to tell you what to eat and create meal plans for you for the rest of your life. I want you to learn how to make those choices every day for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fantastic. It's I would imagine it's rewarding to you maybe more than it is to them, because you've been through it, you've walked the walk. So it just must feel so good I would say it's your purpose. I'm always thinking, what's my purpose in life? So I feel like you found yours at a very young age. That's awesome. All right, let's get into the juicy. What are your thoughts on the contraceptive pill? I feel like we've already covered this a little bit. And how can women get off the pill? I've been reading some posts on your page, and you were talking about getting off the pill without dealing with post-pill symptoms. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on the reason you're on the pill. I mean, I know it makes contraception easy. My first point to that is there are so many other methods of contraception nowadays. So it's not the be all and end all. My favorite contraceptive method is the fertility awareness method. So a lot of people don't realize that we are only fertile 5 to 6 days of the month, because even though the egg only survives 24 hours, sperm survives up to 5 to 6 days. So if you're having sex, say 5 days before ovulation, you may still have some sperm hanging around. You ovulate and then you get pregnant. Whereas if you stay away from that like danger zone, if you're not trying to conceive, then you've got 3 weeks basically where you're not fertile. And in that time, because if you're trying to be safe, like I would still double that up with like condoms and whatnot. But it just means that you don't need to be taking these synthetic hormones every single day just for contraception.
So glad you said that. I've been doing that years. And I'm like, but I'm married. So if anything happened, it'll be like, well, it's okay. It's not like, it would be the worst thing, but it's never caught me up, because I'm so regular though. I guess it would depend on people's cycle, but my cycle is so regular, and I'm always checking my app, and I love the little updates, and prioritize self today, because you're those little updates where you are in your cycle. But I've done that for years, and I actually remember in high school, I was a virgin, but all my friends had boyfriends that were having sex, and they used to come to me because PD was my favourite subject. Okay, Steph, and I would circle in their diaries in a red pen, danger zone, danger zone, danger zone. They were fertile. Not the 15-year-old Steph was,
That's pretty impressive. You had that knowledge back then.
But no, I'm so glad you said that about that method, because it was my personal experience that the pill just did not work for me. It's just, it just wasn't the right thing. And I've been with my partner a long time. So, but yeah, it's always worked for me, knowing my
Yeah.
cycle.
And like you can also like three methods of contraception is fertility awareness, condom, and you can still do the withdrawal method. So like then you've got three.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can make
Yeah.
it work
We
if you
do
know
all
what you're
that,
doing.
especially we bought condoms. We'd never bought condoms in our relationship until I gave birth to my son, July 2024. And Jana Pittman, the Olympian, delivered my son, and she came in and lectured me on contraception because you have to wait 18 months because of the C-section before you can try again. So she lectured me on contraception, and I'm like, I'm 41 and married. Like, who's buying condoms? 41 and married. And we had to. And my husband is so religious about putting it on because I think he's like, one child is enough for now. He's so religious about it. So
Yeah. Oh,
things.
that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy how many women experience men making up excuses as to why they can't wear condoms as well. And like, I understand that sometimes they have like a latex allergy and whatnot, but there's condoms where that's
I think
they've worked around that.
Yeah, 100%. It's awful that women feel like they have to ask. Like that should just be a prerequisite if you don't know each
Yeah.
other very well. So yeah, ridiculous.
So in terms of other reasons that people might be on the pill, in terms of if they're, for example, acne, or if they're experiencing other symptoms like period pain or whatnot, I do like to still have an integrative medicine approach because like quality of life is so important. And if you do
Yeah.
have women with endometriosis who absolutely need to be on the pill, otherwise they just can't function, they're in so much pain, then like I want to support them in doing that so that like everyone's
Absolutely.
able to make their own decision. But
Integrative
it is,
is
yeah,
great. I listen to both. I just feel
yeah,
that long term, I get more out of naturopaths. But
yeah.
yeah, so endometriosis is a big reason that people would be prescribed the pill, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. But even then, like you were saying, integrative, it's looking long term as well. Yes, you're on the pill now to help you manage that pain, but like, how can you reduce that inflammation yourself? How can you make sure that your diet and your lifestyle are optimized and not further driving that condition? And a
Yeah.
lot of people just, go on the pill. Their gyno or their doctor doesn't even go through nutritional techniques with them. And it's just, that's it. And it just blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had a couple of very close friends go through it, and it's awful endo. I feel for women. So common too. I feel
Yeah.
like I hear it all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and your personal experience was that it didn't work for you. That's not something.
Well, it just masks the symptoms and it gives you synthetic hormones, and with that there are negative side effects even for people with endo, but sometimes like in that case when it's severe the pros outweigh the cons. But in terms of acne, it just, I don't think it's worth it. And also something in your body is driving that acne. So by you then taking the pill to shut off your hormones and override it with synthetics, you're not addressing that. And say that is poor gut health, and then you've just gone and overridden it with the pill and you've masked it and you're none the wiser.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the poor gut health persists. It could cause other issues, inflammation at other sites of your body. You then have new conditions popping up. And if you had just like actually asked why you're getting acne in the first place and then addressed that, then you fix it at the root, it goes away, and then you're not. Yeah.
But this is for all areas of your health, mental health. I was discussing that with the
Yeah.
psychologist. Not against antidepressants at all, and sometimes some people need that. But if you're doing antidepressants with no therapy and no digging down to the root cause of what happened, your previous traumas, it will just keep coming back up.
Yeah.
It's like, I picture like a big brother sitting on top of a laundry basket on top of a little brother and just trapping him inside. But eventually he's going to have to get up and, it's all going to come back out again. So I just think treating the root cause in every area of your life is really, really important. So how are some ways you can get off the pill without dealing with those post-pill symptoms?
The biggest one is making sure that you are as healthy as you possibly can be before you get off the pill. Because getting off the pill, your body is essentially going through puberty again. So it needs to learn how to make all of the hormones in the right balance. It needs to restore. When you go off the pill, other hormones that have been, the synthetic, it's been taken over. If there's all of a sudden like less of those, then there can be more of other hormones. So it can shoot like testosterone up when you get off the pill and all of that type of thing. So in order for your body to, it's going to do that anyway, but in order for your body to kind of come back to balance as quick as possible, your body really needs to be functioning at its best so that it can withstand that change. Because, you know, our body is constantly bringing us back into balance throughout our days, and, you know, stress that happens, it's always trying to bring us back to this balance. Even when we're too hot, we sweat and it brings it back down. When we're too cold, we shiver. So it's always got this mechanism that brings us back to balance. So your body knows how to do that. It's very smart. But if we aren't making sure that we're in like the best health as possible beforehand, it can't deal with that change as well. And one thing in particular is that the pill depletes nutrients like B vitamins and magnesium. So if you're not replenishing those, when you get off the pill, it's going to be a lot more obvious, those nutrient deficiencies. And that's when you see a lot of the post-pill symptoms as well.
Great. So it's a holistic approach. What are some post-pill symptoms that people can keep an eye out for?
Oh, acne is a huge one because it is around that 1 to 3 months that the testosterone is often going to rebound. You've just got a lot more free testosterone in the blood. And then, weight fluctuations, a lot of mood swings as well, because even if you do get your period back, it doesn't mean that you're ovulating. And even if you ovulate, it can be like a not a very high quality ovulation. And so you may not be making enough progesterone, and you really need progesterone to help your moods and to reduce anxiety. So it can be things like that. It can be period pain because estrogen receptors have been desensitized, and your body's got a lot of work to do afterwards.
Yeah. Myth or fact, you're at your highest fertility when you first go off the pill?
Oh, I would say myth. No.
I've heard that so much from that's doing the rounds. So I have been hearing that for years, that people are like, that's when you're most fertile, when you go off the pill.
I have heard that before, actually.
Yeah, and you were just saying that you might not be ovulating. So I was like, well, that's not true at all, then. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put that around. Okay.
I used to hear that all the time, actually.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard that in ages.
Maybe it was a Chinese whisper thing that started in high school that's just done the rounds. What are some signs of hormonal imbalance in women, just in general, not just going off the pill?
Yeah, so I mean, the ones that are associated with the period are a little bit more obvious because obviously that's your female reproductive association. But any symptoms that appear cyclic around the cycle, so maybe they come up just in the week of your period or just before your period, or even just around the middle of your cycle where ovulation is meant to be. If that's happening every single cycle and you're kind of noticing a pattern, for example, bloating. Bloating can be like, oh, well, it's a gut issue. And if you're bloated all of the time and there's not really a pattern to it, then probably that does indicate more gut. But if you're just bloated before the week before your period, then that's probably more hormonally driven.
But does that mean it's a hormonal imbalance that I have to address, or that's just what happens when you get your cycle?
That is a brilliant question. You're not meant to experience symptoms. Like maybe in terms of shedding the lining, your uterus is a muscle that does actually contract in order to shed that lining. So you might experience the sensation of contractions and cramps, but they absolutely should not be painful. You should not experience mood swings. Maybe you are a little bit more tired the week before your period just because your body is busy. It's doing a lot of things to kind of get ready, and then that period happens. And again, you might be a little bit more tired the week of that period, but nothing should be debilitating, which I think is like a really big indicator.
I'd say I'm probably in better frame now because I don't really get a lot of physical, and I used to be very emotional. I remember my mum always forcing evening primrose oil on me. I mean, I was a teenager, but I always find day 10 to 7, I'm probably more, you know what mine is? Mine's more a confidence thing. And I just think that's okay. Like it's just cyclical. I did an episode on cyclical living, and I would just be in my retreat mode, like days, like 10 or 7 days before the period, that little window. Yep. So I try not to book interviews and things like that because I don't want to talk. I don't want to be seen as my little retreat mode. But then when I'm ovulating, I cannot get enough of socializing or seeing people. And I
Yeah.
heard that, well, I read once that that's an evolutionary thing, that's when you're meant
Yeah.
to be out meeting a mate to procreate. So I'm like, well, that makes sense. Not that, I'm married. I'm not out to meet a mate, but I'm certainly more social. Like, I just feel like that's when my battery is at its highest. So now I will literally plan my diary and social calendar around my cycle, which might sound woo-woo to some people, but works for me. And then there's a lot less chance that I'll cancel an event because I'll only plan events when I know I'm going to be in my confident social phase. So yeah,
Absolutely. It's science. And exactly what you said is that like
that's good to know
it's
yourself.
the estrogen after your period ends and then until ovulation that is like making you fertile. You're about to release an egg. So that is the time when you are more social, you have more energy, you're more confident, or it's the time when you're meant to be. With cycle syncing, I get really frustrated when I see cycle syncing as a treatment plan because, I mean, in the way of planning your diary around your cycle, if your hormones aren't balanced, then you can't like defib them into being balanced just by booking all of. Oh gosh,
Got you.
can you see
Oh,
that? What is happening?
firework. What's happened? Is it New Year's Eve?
I think it was some reaction when I did something with my hands.
That is so weird. Okay.
Gosh.
Um,
Yeah, you can't like shake your hormones into being balanced just because you're doing a certain activity at a certain time of the month or a certain type of workout. You can't just like hit your way to increasing your estrogen and then yoga your way to
oh,
improving your progesterone.
got
Like it just cycle syncing is really something that you can take advantage of once your hormones are balanced because then you will have those hormonal like effects that you're experiencing.
right. Not trying to force it into it. Yeah, no, I definitely
Yeah.
do shift my workouts around that now. I can do no running on days 1 or 2 of my period. And also I try
Yeah.
and dial it back a bit then.
And that's
So what are
because your
your,
hormones are balanced.
yeah, and I mean, it
Yeah.
took a long time, but they are. But then, being postpartum, I'm seeing different sort of things. I mean, I don't think it's bad. I'm 8 months postpartum and I feel like, the hair grew back, the nails are strong. I feel like I sort of came back, but I cannot for the life of me get rid of this arm fat. And I had great arms. And I'm like, it's just who I am at the moment because I did hear that it takes 2 years to get your hormones back. So I'm like, oh, well, it is what it is. If I'm going to go for another baby, I might as well just deal with it and then find, but then also I keep saying, I've got to get rid of that notion of get back to the old Steph. Like maybe this is just who I am now. I'm in my 40s. I've had kids. Maybe my body's just changing and it is what it is. Do you find that like hormones can affect physical parts of your body?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
like arm fat that I just never had before? That's a hormonal thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it can also be changes in insulin resistance over the lifespan as well. Something that really needs to be addressed as we go through like the next hormonal change after puberty is obviously menopause. And
Yeah.
a huge thing for people to work through in that phase is to make sure that their insulin is balanced, their insulin sensitivity, because then that can impact weight gain as well.
How can you do that? Or is that more in depth that you would need to work one-on-one with?
I mean, as a very
Nutshell.
general, yeah, nutshell, is just to make sure that you have a balanced diet and to make sure
Okay.
that you're not like spiking your glucose levels. A lot of people, if they rely on sugar or caffeine for energy, they'll like spike their blood sugar levels or eat lots of carbs and then they'll crash and then they'll crave it again. And then it's just like they're in a constant cycle of spike, crash, spike, crash. And I'm definitely
Absolutely.
not anti carbs, but you got to do it properly.
No, I have zero, like refined sugar and caffeine. I cannot have caffeine because for people it wakes them up. For me, it's the opposite. I feel scrambled. I get severe anxiety and I just spike and crash. So I
Yeah.
do ginger juice, lemon, and some ginseng, and I feel great. Like that for me, that's my sustained energy, not like a spike and a crash. It just doesn't work for me. Totally get it.
Yeah.
What are your top tips for balancing our hormones?
Top tips for balancing hormones. If you have a hormonal balance, I highly recommend getting really clear on what hormones are out and how much are they out. Like
Like
testing
blood.
is The Dutch test is a lot more comprehensive in terms of it doesn't just measure what free hormones are in the blood in that point of time. It actually measures how your body is using those hormones, how it's excreting those hormones. Is the estrogen and the testosterone getting reabsorbed and recirculated instead of being cleared out through the body? Like, what is it kind of doing with that? Whereas,
is there information on your website about
yeah,
that?
yeah. So I have made it so that people can order their own functional tests through my website because I believe that everybody should be able to have access to data on their bodies instead of having to pay for a consultation just to get the slip to go get the test.
Great. Oh, see, giving back. You're always paying it forward. Okay, your other tips.
And it's just about building that foundation. So, like, obviously, you have the more targeted things that are unique to each individual, looking at what is driving it for them and their root cause. But again, going back to making sure that your diet and your lifestyle are balanced, they're not restrictive. Anything that causes the body stress is not going to be nurturing and productive for our hormones. And again, in like the health industry these days and diet culture, it's like, do this restrictive diet, cut out this food, do this ice bath, go do this HIIT event. And it's just like, even though that looks like the picture of health when you're doing HIIT and you're like, you know, restricting and doing a diet and everything like that, like, I can tell you for women's health, that is not the picture of health.
I am so glad you said the word ice bath. I forgot to write this question down that I've been dying to talk to you about. Now, I have heard many female scientists say that it is literally only in the last year or two that they have started even running these tests on female bodies, that all this information we have has been done on the male body. We are not the same as the male body. So I personally, for myself, know that intermittent fasting doesn't work for me. That might have been tested on a man. I stopped HIIT workouts a while ago, and I was another vlogger I was watching. That's how she was able to get her period back and fall pregnant. She stopped doing the HIIT workouts. I would just do weight sessions or a slow, steady run. I used to do interval sprints, so now I do a slow, steady run. Now, ice baths, never did them. Hate the cold. I hate being too cold, and I have a neuromuscular disorder, and being too cold is not great for my muscles either. And I recently said this in a podcast that I said I would never do one. But I also like free things, and where I get my infrared sauna, there's an ice bath in it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do I've heard it's good for speeding up your metabolism, where you go from ice bath to sauna, ice bath. And I would only be in the ice bath for a few seconds, but I was like, okay, I'm going to suck myself into it. Then I was listening to a podcast and someone saying, was it on Mel Robbins' podcast, I think, saying that that's not great for women because that can spike your cortisol. And then looked on your Instagram page and you mentioned nothing against ice baths, but I personally don't do them because it can spike your cortisol. And now it's like I've been given permission to, oh great, I don't have to do them. I can stay reading my book because I don't even enjoy it. But for many people, I'm seeing benefits and I get it. But I know my body at this age, and I know that anything that is that extreme stress, if high cortisol is my issue and I'm going to psychologists and exploring anti-anxiety medications, I don't want any other external factors that are going to increase the stress in my body. So is that your take on ice baths?
Yeah, so I have been saying all along that, like, intuitively it just doesn't feel good for my body, and I've always had justifications, but there wasn't a lot of science for women specifically, like you were saying. So even start of last year I was saying it, even before then, where I was like, especially the womb, the uterus, it likes to be warm, it likes to be calm and nurtured. It doesn't want to be like in a high stress environment or cold. And so that's kind of also where I was coming from, as well as I'm like, I've got my own stress management techniques because I've done the work. Like, I've learnt them. It's not like, I mean, for somebody who hasn't learnt those techniques, maybe they do need the ice baths to kind of help them get into that if that's what works for them. But
because it can be anti-inflammatory, right?
Yeah, they can be. A really important, like, now all the science is coming out where it's showing that, like, they may not be as beneficial for women as they are men. Also, men run. Men run like 3 degrees warmer on average than women. So that means that a female's ice bath, it should be like 3 degrees warmer, but like as a minimum.
Honestly, every standard is run on men. We just we have to figure it out on our own, don't we? That's insane. Oh,
Yeah.
I could sit in that for a while. I find that so interesting. So yeah, I know Tony Robbins does them as, I think psychologically it's cool because it's like he's 1, 2, 3, go, and then it's like you've done the hard thing, and then psychologically I do feel good after it. You know, it's like you've been stressed, and then after it, it's like that relief. But I just know my body now, and I know that that doesn't feel good. And it's interesting you say about the uterus being warm, and that's what Nina, when she was on talking about cyclical living, said the same thing. And every time I get acupuncture, they're always saying the same thing too. You should have warm foods and steamed vegetables, not raw, cold salads and cold smoothies. And I love them in summer, but when I do them, I bloat straight away. So I think there is some merit to the fact if your body's running at a certain temperature, if introducing something really cold, it's going to go into a bit of shock. So
Yeah. But there's time and place for everything as well, because like on your menstrual cycle, shedding of the lining is an inflammatory process, and it's meant to be. You don't want too much inflammation. Again, everything is balanced, but I absolutely would not recommend any woman to go into an ice bath while she's on her period, because that's just going to make things a lot harder, and you want to really support and nurture like your uterus at that time, and you want to almost like encourage that inflammatory process, because that's natural. That's what's meant to happen.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. What about the other end, infrared saunas? Is that too much heat during your cycle?
I would like to look at like specific studies on this actually, but it's
I
good in
actually don't
moderation.
go when I have my period, just because, you know, in case of leakage, I guess. So no, I just feel like it's not. I don't feel as good, so I like to stay home
Yeah.
and retreat. But that's okay. Well,
Yeah, I do a lot of things intuitively, but I love the infrared sauna. I do think that it's good not to like stay in it for ages and ages, but sometimes it's so relaxing you just get a bit carried away.
what do you think's a good time limit?
They're saying like no more than 30 minutes.
Okay, I do 45. So do you do 30?
I like to try and do 30. Sometimes I'm just like so relaxed and I just don't want to get out that I just push it.
So relaxing. I
Yeah.
was so surprised. The two things I really hate is like heat and claustrophobia. And I was like, I'm going to hate this. The second I set foot in one, I felt so at peace. And I had like my meditation music playing. And it was just, I just love it. I just can't get enough of
Yeah.
it. It's been a really good part of my postpartum recovery process as well. And you can't get them when you're pregnant. So I definitely missed that. I had to interrupt you there with the ice bath, but do carry on with your top tips for balancing hormones.
So yeah, just making sure that your diet isn't restrictive, essentially.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you're really nourishing your body and making sure that you're not having any nutrient deficiencies, you're not missing any really important foods and nutrients and that kind of thing. And then also making sure that you're lowering stress as much as possible. You're supporting all of your body systems holistically, like your gut, and you're not doing like crazy anything to drive that stress. Like if I had a hormone imbalance, I wouldn't be doing HIIT. That's not to say you can never do HIIT, but I definitely wouldn't be doing it if I was in a stage of healing.
Yeah. You know what? It's all very simple, isn't it? It's not as complicated as we make it. Balancing things, you know, eating all your macronutrients, you know, taking time to yourself, getting sleep, not having prolonged stress. It's so simple, but I just think life is so elevated. It's so hard. You know the answers, but it's so hard to put it into practice. I feel like that's the only barrier, really. Having to work is the only barrier.
If you don't love it, but even then, it can be busy.
Like hours. I was
Yeah.
I'm finding it a little. I love my job, but I have been finding the balancing, like easing back in with a son, so hard. And if my husband travels to work, which he does, and I'm solo parenting, and I'm sitting there with my back to him on the laptop, I feel so terrible. I haven't been able to get him into childcare yet. I have a nanny that comes one day a week. And I'll just be working so hard. And then he's looking at me like he wants me. And the other night, this is digressing, but I put the TV on. You're younger, you might not remember it. It was from about 95, a movie called Hook with Robin Williams, about he was Peter Pan when he was young, and then he grew up into a really grumpy lawyer who was yelling at his kids. And I put the TV on as soon as I logged off work. At 8:45 p.m. I logged off work. And I was like, I feel like that movie was like shaking me into reality of, yeah, something's got to give. You can't be working to 8:45 at night when you have an 8-month-old, like dragging on your pants. So that's my 2025 has been an interesting year of getting a bit uncomfortable and doing new things, but I'm also trying to work on the balance. And I had better balance, obviously, on maternity leave. So trying to get back to that, not just for the connection with my son, but for me, because I don't feel myself if I'm not putting that time into myself and having that balance. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's all a balancing act.
everything, every area of your health, I agree. What are the biggest mistakes most women are making with their hormones, skin, gut, and overall well-being in today's ultra busy society? I feel like I just covered one.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we've just covered so many.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the restriction I've already spoken about, but also, I guess, thinking that health is one size fits all, thinking that their root causes and their imbalances are exactly the same as the girl who had acne on TikTok. And it's like,
Yes.
personalize things to you. No one has the exact same diet, the exact same environment, the exact same things going on in their body at the exact same time. And so it's really important. Like, yes, health is really simple in terms of maintaining that balance. It shouldn't be hard, it should be sustainable. It's not about extremes. But if you are experiencing symptoms, and especially if like they're quite severe or they're really affecting your quality of life, I think personalization through testing and working out what your root cause is and how you can actually address your issue is better than just taking a supplement that may actually be the opposite of what you need. It was just what this other person needed.
I have seen a society become extremely lazy and just wanting to pop a pill to sort things, and it can be a band-aid, or it can be the completely wrong treatment for you. And I completely agree. And I do see
Yeah.
vloggers say a lot, this is what works for me. I highly recommend you go get your testing and see. And it's not just like a dietary thing, it's environmental thing. It could be relationships you're in, jobs you're in, any sort of stressor can be adding to that. So yeah, it's just not one size fits all at all. That's really good advice. I completely agree with everyone checking themselves out. I'm going to end with my very favourite question to ask, and you've been on a bit of a journey yourself. So if you met your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that no one is going to care about you and your health or your life as much as you are going to. And no one's going to have as much time to put into it as you are. So really it's up to you to not, sit there in victimhood. It's up to you to take that responsibility, take back that control, empower yourself. And the way that I did that was with knowledge is power, and by educating myself so that I was confident and knew what to do and had the answers. I think so many of us feel like we don't have the answers. So this, I guess this is probably also speaking to my personality, is I've always been like, okay, well, if I don't know something, I'm going to go out and find it, or I'm going to go figure it out, because I'm like, if somebody else can do it, then I can do it too. So I just need to figure out how. And yeah, getting all of that knowledge is just one of the most empowering things that I've done, because now when I did my naturopathy degree, it was pretty selfish. It was like, obviously to make sure that I'm in control of my own health. But then I'm like, I'll be able to be the practitioner for like all of my family. If anything ever happens, I'll be able to access testing and supplements, like the highest quality for them. And that's kind of was my justification, also because I just wanted to learn more. But you don't have to, have that level of qualification or access in order to still be in control of your health. And yeah, I guess with the way that I've done my programs, I try to make them as helpful as, say, someone going and becoming a practitioner and learning a university degree, but making them not sciencey, like making them so that the average woman, the everyday woman, can understand it, because a lot of the time people are like, too hard basket, or that will go over my head.
It would turn people off. Science and math were
Yeah.
my worst in school. So if I hear anything too sciencey, I retreat a little bit. So I completely understand
Yeah.
that.
No, I like to make it fun, especially the teacher
Yeah.
in me. I think that that's actually one of my skill sets, is to take complex things and make them easier. And that's like one of my favorite things to do. So I think everything
That's
happens for a reason.
absolutely. Firstly, backtracking, not selfish at all. It's absolutely brilliant. Podcast is called Can I Get a Refill? You fill up your cup before you fill up other people's. Not so selfish at all. Secondly, you are
Absolutely.
so speaking my language with everything you just said. And my journey is completely unrelated to cystic acne, but completely that exact same journey, in that I was in a domestic violent relationship many, many years ago. And the line I recited to myself was, no one is coming to save you. And the second I recited that to myself, I grabbed life by the balls and I absolutely fought tooth and nail to create a life that I dreamed of, that I cried on the bathroom floor picturing, and I did it and no one else did it. And it's great to have supportive people around you, but at the end of the day, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't force it to drink, and you're in charge of your life, and you cannot stay in victimhood and expect someone else to fix your issues. You need to hunt it, and it's okay to, rely on external sources too and seek that help. So everything you said makes perfect sense. I've actually got goosebumps because I love how you ended that. That's just perfect.
It's amazing.
We've had a few technical glitches, Mads, but it's just been so lovely to talk to you. I've really, really enjoyed this episode. I hope the editing comes out good at the end, but you've been so valuable and I really appreciate everything you've added to our community. I know everyone's going to really love this episode. So thank you so much for joining, and everyone, please take a moment this week to fill up your cup.
Thank you so much for having me.